Welcome to Innovators at the Intersection. I'm Jordan Weiss, and I'm thrilled to share stories of visionaries and creatives at the crossroads of culture and STEAM. Our monthly podcast and bi-monthly publication highlight change makers that are shaping a better tomorrow. Today, we are very excited to have with us Dr. Ian Levy. Dr. Levy wears many hats: an educator, a counselor, doctor, obviously, in the education space, but also an MC, microphone controller, master of ceremony, and he bridges the gap in all three of these areas. And he's got a very unique story and a unique background. So why don't we just open the floor and dive right in and tell us a little bit about your background and how these kind of worlds are converging and just get into it. Really intrigued to hear about it.
Awesome. Well, first off, thank you for having me. It's awesome to be out here and
pleasure
to chat about folks that are interested in the work. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So my path, I think starts with my parents, my family. I'm from a family of musicians. Mm-hmm. My father's a jazz trombonist. My mom is an opera singer, and then they both became educators. So they met at Manhattan School of Music in the 70s and became educators. And they raised me in New York City, in Inwood, New York, tip top of the island for folks that know about Washington Heights. Yep. Yeah, and I grew up in and around music. I picked up the trumpet in 4th grade, played for a very, very long time. And if you had met me when I was like 18, or, I would have told you I wanted to be a jazz trumpeter. I really was inspired by like Miles Davis and who isn't, but Clifford Brown and Lee Morgan. And just like I grew up on jazz and love jazz. And when I got into college, and long story short, felt like there were kind of some other avenues I wanted to explore. I took some classes in psychology and fell in love with exploring like who I was as a person. Mm-hmm. It was sort of at the same time that I was going to college, Queens College in New York City, in a dorm where like kids were just rapping all the time, and people had like dorm rooms like set up with, I remember like big amps with microphones attached to them, and we'd do these dorm room ciphers. And so I was studying psychology, learning about myself, kind of had put my trumpet down, but still was searching for ways to access music, and kind of organically just picked up the mic. And, I like to think that I was good at it. I probably was not very good at the time, but I think I had an affinity for it and a natural talent because of my attention to rhythm, my ability to control like my breath from playing trumpet.
Wow.
So I had these natural kind of, like abilities that helped me, or skills that I had honed through trumpet playing that helped me transition into rapping. And that's from the moment I picked up that mic in the dorm room, I just fell like deeply, deeply in love with hip hop spaces and performing and writing rhymes. And I graduated with a degree in psychology. And what do you do with a degree, an undergrad in psychology, right? You have to go to a master's program most of the time.
If you're going to stay and focus in that field, yes.
If you're going to focus in that field, and if you want to get a job, like it's usually that is a nice stepping stone for a master's degree. So I got a master's degree in school counseling, and I had landed at Columbia Teachers College, and met somebody who actually we have in common, and realized Dr. Chris Emden.
That's right. Dr. Emden from way back at the other publication. But that's really that.
And he was running the Science Genius program and all that stuff in New York City. And so when I connected with Dr. Emden, I had started a degree in counseling psychology with a focus on school counseling, and I was like going to school during the day and then like running downtown and going to like open mic nights and clubs and like this popular cipher called Legendary Ciphers in Union Square Park and a bunch of other like dope hip hop spaces. Mm-hmm. And Emden was one of the first people that said to me, like, you need to think about how to merge these more.
He was doing, so at that time, he was doing the work within science.
He was doing work in science. So he was gaining traction as a leading scholar at that time. I mean, now he's like gained and is prolific. At that time, he was burgeoning within this world of like thinking about applying hip-hop based approaches to science education. Right. But he saw me and said, like, you can, like, I remember when he like told me in his office, like, you can be the person to explore this in counseling, which was very powerful for somebody to tell me that at Columbia University of all places,
Yeah,
right?
it is.
And so I spent a lot of my time working towards that degree, writing like term papers for all my classes, like about hip hop and just like about my experiences in ciphers and how when I went to a cipher to rhyme for the first time, I shared emotions that I hadn't spoken about before, and people like dapped me up after and told me to come back, and like I felt a sense of validation and support that I had never felt before, and in fact countered like intellectually what I thought would be judgment when I shared those emotions. So I always thought like, oh, if I tell these stories about myself, like and express this vulnerability, people are going to think I'm weak, or they're going to judge me in some way. But in fact, in hip hop spaces, it was the opposite. The more I could lean into storytelling, the more I could share my thoughts in these real ways and use words that like really described what I was experiencing, the more interested people were in me and my story. And so there were these natural ways that when we think about counseling and the lack of culturally responsive approaches to counseling, it was very clear to me that counseling was happening all the time in all of these hip-hop spaces.
Absolutely.
Right? And that the same folks that counseling as a entity was struggling to address, right? There's all this data that says like Black and brown youth don't find counselors relatable. We need services that respond to the lived realities and experiences of Black and brown youth. Like all that same exact population of youth are participating in hip hop spaces every day.
Yeah, the culture having a huge
and
impact.
So there's this need to, in my opinion, I was and am still not the only person doing work in this area, but that was sort of how I got into thinking about, well, what would it look like to bring some of these hip hop cultural practices into the work more intentionally, and so that's sort of the beginning. We can get into the nitty gritty of it, but it was really this path from it stemmed from my love and my upbringing in music and my connections to, and I guess appreciation for hip hop culture. And then seeing this need in counseling that was like, it felt like silly not to just look outside and see what's happening.
Yeah.
And let's bring this in here.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it kind of leads into the next question. Well, I guess what first sparked the idea to use hip hop as a tool for, I guess, healing and connecting? You kind of touched on that, but maybe you can, if you want to go a little bit deeper into that area or that part, I guess, when it comes to actually connecting with students and helping them, and like what sparked the idea? When did you kind of know, like, wait a second, there's something I can do that's kind of different, that's unique, that kind of blends my background in psychology, but also my passion for hip hop as an MC, and to do something constructive with it that's going to help people?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, like there is still a problem in developing approaches to counseling that are rooted in like the cultural worldviews of marginalized populations. We oftentimes, like most, if not all, approaches to counseling and therapy were built like for and by white folks. So they're steeped in like Eurocentric understandings of what it means to exist and be and become like full versions of ourselves. So I would argue that, again, the traditional approaches weren't really even built for Black and brown populations, yet we're trying to use them. And then we're like surprised when they don't work. And surprise is actually a nicer word. We problematize populations that don't engage with them. We say like, well, Black and brown communities don't want counseling.
Right.
No, folks just want things that feel real and feel relatable, right? And so the initial kind of charge for me as a school counselor was like, how do I get kids to come into my office and feel like they can share their stories with me, like at a very simple level. Like that was like what I wanted. And I felt like because of the natural ability of hip hop to create an environment where folks tell their stories and feel like it is culturally and socially acceptable to tell stories, perhaps putting a microphone in the corner of my office and saying to young people, hey, when you come in here, we can discuss what it is that is bothering you. We can find a beat. You can write some lyrics about that and you can record it. would be enough to get young people to come in. And sure enough, it was, right? And not only was that like enough, but it opened the door for all these other things to happen. So I think young people came in. I remember the early days of my work where kids would come in, share a song that they've been listening to, and I could discuss with them like why it is that they were drawn to that particular piece of music. So if a kid was bringing in, I remember like loads of like Meek Mill, if they were bringing in like some Meek Mill,
right,
and he's talking about like issues within his family or tensions within the community in which he was situated within, it was a very easy avenue for me to ask young folks, like, are you dealing with any stressors like this? Can you tell me about what's happening in your community? Can you tell me about what's happening in your family? And I would find, right, that naturally kids would listen to things that represented what they were going through, which is what we all do, right? Like, and so talking about music that kids were bringing in was an immediate pathway. And then I could say, well, let's find just the instrumental to this Meek Mill song, and why don't you tell me your story through some lyrics, and you can record them, and then kids would leave the office with a record, right, that they could bring with them, and they could, you know, if they had tensions at home, for example, they could go in their room and listen to that song at home as a way to kind of like process and make sense of those tensions, right? And so counseling became this space where the sessions, like the studio sessions in our office, were these counseling sessions, right?
Wow. It's like what you're providing in a sense. You have this free-flowing kind of atmosphere where it's not, you know, these kids are coming in, it's not so rigid. It's not like, you know, going into the typical, like, you know, your background and, you know, you're giving an open space for them to feel comfortable first off. And because they're feeling comfortable and they're, you know, passionate about music and they're into hip-hop and into rhyming, it seems like it becomes a very safe space and an open space for them to express themselves, and get some things off their chest, right?
Yeah. And I think you can learn about all that background, right? So you're referencing, right, like those initial kind of intakes that folks do, and they learn about your history in different capacities. And,
right.
You know, I mean, that's still part of the process in school-based counseling anyway, and you have that information in other ways, and it's important and necessary. I think you also can get a lot of that, and probably you can get more details than you would on those traditional biopsychosocials by like talking to youth about the music that they're making, right? Because they'll reference like their block in a lyric, and then you can ask about it and learn more about like their history that way than you would in any other sense.
They're probably excited to talk about it, I would think, right? It's more excited than if you like put them right on the spot and said, hey, you know, can you tell me more about, right?
Yeah, you just met me, now tell me your whole history, and you don't know me, and trust me, and there's a history of counseling not being a resource for you and your community, and now I want you to like divulge secrets to me. It's this way. It's real. It's let me hear and let me listen to your music. I think that the important caveat here is that counselors need to be able to listen to hip hop, right? We're hip hop heads. We can listen to lyrics and be like, oh my God, did you hear what he just said? We can rewind it. I didn't catch something. I didn't catch a metaphor the first time, but I did the second time. I love listening to Jay-Z because each time I listen to him, I learn something new, right? Like, but if you have that requires an active level of listening. In counseling, we talk about active listening, being able to listen to the emotions beneath the content of what somebody is saying.
Okay.
And we're trained to do that through traditional like talk therapy. Right. So I might like look at a transcription of a conversation you and I had and be like, this is in counseling, like training. Okay, like, you know, you said XYZ thing and I'm sensing that you felt sad. So I could use a statement that said, it sounds like you're feeling a bit sad, or it sounds like you're really struggling, or it's, you know, what. So we would practice using statements, but again, it's through traditional dialogue. The task for counselors in hip hop methods is to be able to do that same thing with hip hop lyrics. Can a counselor hear a hip hop lyric and hear the emotion that's beneath it? And that becomes more challenging because people have biases about hip hop. People hear words they don't know, like different lingo that youth are using. Right now, if we walk into a school, young people are going to be using very different words than they did 2 years ago, right? Because hip hop changes, language changes, culture changes. We have to be able to do the work to listen beyond our own biases that we might have. A lot of people don't like hip hop, right? So they have judgments about it. They hear a curse word and they don't want to listen to what a young person's saying anymore. And so while, yes, hip hop practices open up an avenue for us to really, really hear youth stories, counselors also have to be receptive to those stories.
Yeah.
And I think that requires work to really be able to listen to lyrics in that way.
Hip hop, like other forms of music, I mean, what is it? It's the doctrine of affections. Is that when you actually, it generates a feeling, right?
Yes.
And there's a lot of amazing artists that have been able to really open themselves up and wear their, hearts on their sleeve and just kind of talk about their struggles. I mean, if you actually think about a lot of different hip hop artists and MCs over the years, I mean, that's what a lot of them are talking about. So it's almost like the psychology is rooted in a lot of the lyrics of some of the greats, whether it was somebody like Melly Mel or Biggie or I mean, you could just go on and on.
Yeah.
There's just, it's talking about their lives.
Yeah. Yep. Hip hop has always been that, right? It has been an avenue for folks to share thoughts, feelings, to tell untold stories, right? So it's a natural fit for a profession that is based on hearing people's stories and helping them process and make sense of them.
Yeah, it is, and it's been extremely powerful, and that's why it's probably resonated, with so many people, and why it is what it is,
Yeah, yeah.
So I thought this was thinking about this question. You've seen students open up, writing and rhyming, and you've worked with them. Has there been moments and times where you've actually seen a change in the students as they're participating musically?
Yeah.
And are you seeing them get in touch with certain things that maybe they were struggling with, as almost like a therapy session? I mean, it's the music that's allowing them to get in touch with what they're going through.
Yeah. I can respond to this in a couple different ways, from the practitioner side, but then also from sort of like a research side.
Yeah.
So from the practitioner side, like anecdotally, one of my favorite things about this work is when you get a kid who is like pretty shy, who has never recorded before, to step into the booth the first time. Mm-hmm. They're nervous. They're not sure if what they wrote is good. And if you can provide the right level of encouragement and support for them to record it, they listen to it with their headphones on, and then you play it back for them. And they hear themselves for the first time.
Right.
And they usually say something like, well, that's what I sound like, or, something like that, right?
Yeah.
And like I've seen kids just get like hooked to wanting to get in the booth after getting in that booth the first time.
That one time.
And it's a bug, and then it makes you want to hear yourself, which is like, it makes you want to tell your story and want to listen to your own voice, which, if we think about counseling, I mean, that's the whole goal, is to get in touch with who we are.
Yep.
And to trust who we are. And I think like in a very clear, like straightforward way, right? Like getting in the booth and hearing yourself tell your own story does that.
Right.
From a sort of measurement side, we've done loads of research, and then there's others, like the field itself has done a lot of research. I've been part of some of that, where we've seen like a group counseling process where youth will work, let's say for 10 weeks. A group of 8 youth will work for 10 weeks to create a 5-song album about 5 different emotions that they have highlighted that they want to discuss.
Wow.
And they'll make an album, they'll record it, they'll title it, maybe some music videos, album artwork, that whole thing. They'll create a process. And I've written about this I call it the critical cycle of mixtape making. It's this hip hop like group counseling process. And we've seen that through engaging in these types of processes, using like pre-post survey kind of designs, we've seen reductions in stress, anxiety, depression symptoms. We've seen others have seen like increases in emotional self-awareness, in emotional regulation, the ability to just control our emotional, have a better handle on our emotional experience. So we get sad, we get frustrated, but we know how to like channel that and use it productively rather
really
than
important.
like
Exploding.
which is again when there's no supports and then you explode, of course, right? So like nobody's worked with folks to learn how to deal with that, right?
Yeah, how to
and
channel your emotions.
to channel them
in a healthy way, right?
yeah. And so we've seen loads of like what we I guess like could bucket as like social and emotional benefits from participating in hip hop and counseling programming in schools and community settings. What I've named is just some of it, right? This expressivity, this emotional regulation, but then like there's this, again, on the anecdotal side, there's just a clear confidence building that happens with it where kids just want to share. They want to show people what they got. They want to get up there in front of people. We need more data to track like longitudinal developments. I'm sure, like without a sliver of a doubt, that participation in hip hop programming like this is correlated with like increased confidence in like public speaking, in writing, in various like career, like even in research and presentations and ability to form arguments. I think there's all of these. Like I have not leaned more into this, like what I guess we could call like career development or college and career readiness, like outcomes around this work. But I think the potential is endless, right? I've seen it, and we've also measured it. But again, most of my measurements have been on the social emotional side of this work.
Yeah, no, it's so positive. It's so important to help. Kids, teenagers build confidence. And this sounds like a very natural and authentic way to help them find their own voice. And once they find that voice, it's like, this is my voice. I'm ready. I'm feeling good. I can do it again, and I want to do it again. Right? That's and it's that emotion. And it must be amazing to kind of see that in real time and feel that in real time.
Yeah, I love that you said like I want to do it again, because I think that there's this like
right.
I can remember from my own journey as an MC, and I think I've also seen this in youth, that like when I was really like first getting into lyric writing, I loved coming up with concepts for songs that were based on something that I was like working through. So I would write a song about like self-doubt, or like I would write a song about it could be something like a breakup, or it could be like tensions with a peer, or in my family, or whatever it was. But I remember that like every time something would happen that was maybe like not great in my life, where I would discover something that I wanted to think about, process, or work on, I remember also like feeling sad about that thing or frustrated about that thing, but then also saying, this is a song concept, and being like excited that I could like call my producer, get a new beat made, get a record out of it, right? And that's what we would see in the work, is that you would come to counseling with a goal of like, I want to work on this thing, but more like, this is a concept for a song. So there was this like fascination with being excited to like write and produce an album. But by doing that, we're also being very intentional about targeting a specific thing that we want to work on. Yeah. So you're making music and you're chasing it, but it doesn't even feel like counseling. It doesn't even feel like therapy, because it is, but you're chasing this goal of creating something and sharing it, which is innately what we do with hip hop music anyway. Right. It's just targeted in these really particular ways to like your own development.
Yeah, there's just a cross section of so many different things that are going on.
Yeah.
And the creativity aspect is something I would think, the kids start to thrive on, because when they're kind of touching on their emotions or things that they've gone through, and they're starting to kind of see like, oh, okay, I can structure this song, I'm imagining, right, off of, this situation I've gone through, or this, and I want to ask, it's like, once they start to get the hang of it, or once they get one song out where maybe they touched on something they went through, and they're like, they built a song around it, and there's a hook or whatever it is, there's some really profound lyrics. Do you also see like is it like a spark to just do more? Like they want to write another song? Like we were talking about the kids that go in the booth and they hear their voice and they feel that kind of that presence, that confidence. Is it kind of is that transferable when it comes to actually creating and writing these songs from their experience, from their whatever they're going through?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like, I think in a group process, if you have a group of youth that are collectively working towards like creating a project, an album, the early stages of that process, before they even get in that booth the first time, which mirrors a general group counseling process, is you kind of decide like what are our goals for this group? What are the things that we want to cover? So in a traditional group, you might like throw a piece of chart paper up on the wall and write down like specific like themes that you want to talk about during group sessions. In a hip hop sort of counseling group, we do that same thing, but that sheet of paper with the themes that we talk about like is the track list. So it's very much just like, let's create a list of 5 topics. We talked about something like family stressors. Students love like a, my life story kind of topic and things like this. And you have a list of songs. And so the group is then working to complete those. So they get in the booth, they finish one song, and then it's like, okay, what's the next song up? And it might also not even be that structured. You might have a group of 8 kids and 5 songs, and 3 of them are on one song and another 3 are on another one. And like, so we're in kind of different spaces in this room. Some people are getting ready to record. Some people are listening to a beat on another song. We're all working in harmony together on a project, but kind of in our own little like subgroups. And as the counselor, you're just like monitoring that, right? Checking in, asking questions, following up, bringing the group back together. What did we work on today?
That's cool.
Tell me about, So in short, yes, they are encouraged to keep writing, but they are most encouraged when there's an organic yet organized group process around creating a project.
Got it. Makes a lot of sense. Sounds good. What does a culturally responsive school look and feel like to you from your point of view? Well,
so what I loved about the work that I have done and continue to do in using kind of hip hop as counseling is I think there's a lot of power in the school counselor in shaping that culture of a school building. And I think hip hop methods can be really supportive of that. So for example, my work began with, let's put a microphone in the corner of the room and invite kids into the office. And organically, kids would say things like, I would call my office a studio, and I would be like, come book a session with me, and I would play off this like studio session and counseling session. And so kids would start saying things like, hey, this isn't really a studio. Like, you keep calling this a studio, but it's just a microphone in the corner of your room. So we worked together to like crowdsource some money using like some of these online kind of like Kickstarters, GoFundMe, or Donors Choose. Right. There's all these different ones. And we designed campaigns and raised funding over a number of years to build out a studio space where we got like rugs, we got couches, we got an extra computer with a beat machine, and all of a sudden the space started to represent a real studio as far as like the students defined it, right? So they were telling me what would make it a real studio, and we worked to do that. Eventually, students would want to perform the songs. So we would start having like showcases at the school, and we would have an annual show at the school. One year we had the summer bridge program where the rising ninth graders would come in the summer months, and we had them come for like a hip hop show that some of the students in one of my groups did to like orient, as part of their overall activities, to orient these new rising ninth graders to their new school. And so what started kind of in the office naturally started to become part of the larger school curriculum, right? Teachers would say, hey, we're doing a public service announcement assignment in the English class, and kids want to know if they can use the studio to record some of their like media, like, voiceovers or even songs like for some of their projects. So we would have the, we'd have the teachers bring like kids to the studio during their curriculum to like
Right.
during their courses as part of their unit to like record some stuff, right? So the counseling office then became tethered to like curriculum. The dance, the gym teachers, I did a dance unit and we choreographed some dance pieces around some of the songs that the kids wrote in the studio space.
Cool.
So what I'm saying here is that a culturally responsive program within a school requires that like all folks are working together and centering youth culture like in the work that we're doing. It can't be siloed. You're not going to do cultural work if only one person is doing the work. Otherwise, it's just like, yeah, my counselor is cool, but the rest of the school doesn't really respond to my identity. But I think that if we really lean in and the counselor can be that kind of almost like a DJ, right? Like curating these other educators in the building that can think about how to use this space and use youth's attunement to hip hop to like amplify their work, then like multiple school spaces can become kind of aligned with this. And that's what I've seen organically through my work, and believe is like a recipe for success, but it would look different obviously within every school that you're in.
But it sounds like the underlying kind of theme is like you're helping to build a community.
Yeah. But it's youth driven, right? Because it's like I didn't ask to change the studio. I didn't ask the gym teacher to choreograph a song. They were just kids talking and hearing and wanting to be engaged. And so it was an entire youth driven thing. And then luckily I was working with a handful of really great educators that were willing to listen to what the youth were asking for. And then we could create around it.
Yeah, they were helping to shape it, but you were helping to execute it.
Yeah, we have the skills and the position to shape it. The access and the privilege to shape it, but the youth are the people that are telling us what to do and what to bring in, right?
Exactly.
And we're listening to that. Yeah.
Now you're involved as a musician. I mean, you just said as coming up playing the trumpet as an MC. How do you see your own work that you've been working on, your own projects? How does that connect with the work that you're doing around counseling and hip hop and the work that you're doing in the schools? Do you see kind of a connection sometimes with when you're recording your own projects, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a bunch of things. So I think immediately I need to write as my own therapy, as my own outlet, right?
That,
like I'm constantly writing as my way to process life, and I produced the record in 2023. I'm 2 songs into a new record right now, and I almost use it as like journaling, right? So I'm always writing. It's my own process. I think also by writing, I stay connected to the craft, which I think youth can tell if you're connected to it or not.
Yeah, if you've stopped, it's like if you're playing a sport, like and somebody's going to know if you step on the basketball court, if you haven't played in like 5 or 10 years, they're going to know that, okay, his defense is a little rusty, or he's not really handling the ball. How are they shooting like that? You have to continue to practice, 100%, I guess.
100%. You just reminded me, this is so random, but there's like a Steve Van Gundy clip where he's like in front of a bunch of middle schoolers.
Basketball is the next podcast, by the way.
Yeah, and he's dribbling between his legs. Like he's talking about how you should be dribbling, and he's like older, and he starts dribbling between his legs, and all these like 7th and 8th graders are like, oh. They're like freaking out as he's dribbling because he's showing that he's still able to do this thing, right? So there's something about, it's like a show and prove kind of thing. I can't walk into a school and say I'm an MC, and then if a kid says, where's your music, you say like, oh, I don't have anything new, or I don't have any, like I have to have a 16 ready. I have to be, I don't lead with that. I'm not going to go into a school and just start rapping to try to like get kids to like me. That was probably an approach I used in my novice days when I felt like insecure about who I am and what I'm doing. But at this point, I'm not going to do that. But if a kid, it's hip hop. If somebody says like, you don't really rap, and then now I have to show you, right? So I have to be ready. And so in order to be ready, I'm always writing. I also think that like, it's so interesting. Like when I first started this work, recording technologies weren't as accessible as they are right now for young people. So I could record and like, it was kind of enough to just like throw some vocals over a beat and kids would be like, yeah, cool. Now it's like, do you have auto-tune? Do you have filters? Can you
Right.
do this? Can you like their youth are really, really savvy at knowing what they want their sound to be and
Right.
asking for
You
those
put
things.
some compression on this.
They know these
they
things
do. I
now.
mean, I would imagine because it's so accessible, and they start to develop an ear. I would think, right?
Yeah, and they want to sound a certain way, which in and of itself is a great conversation. Why they want to sound certain ways, and sometimes it's not like themselves, but it's like other people, and there's a lot that you could explore there in a counseling sense. But either way, they're asking for things, and so I have learned that it is incredibly important that not only am I still writing, but like I'm going to studios, I'm asking the producer like what decisions they're making. I started paying my producer virtually for lessons just to like take basic production lessons and mixing and mastering lessons because I need to be able,
You have to lead by example.
and I need to
guess.
be able to actualize like what youth are asking for. So if a young person's recording
Right.
something and it's part of their vision and their process of healing to like have a certain sound, I want to sound like I'm on the phone on this verse because
Right.
I'm trying
Or
to enact
static.
this kind of interaction I had with a friend, whatever. Like I need to be able to put that right filter on. I need to be able to create what it is that they want. So my engagement on my own music keeps me on my toes in all these ways, right? And I think if I stopped and I lost that, then I couldn't
No,
do the work
that's so
in the same way
that's,
anymore.
that's great that you do that, and you know what you're doing. You're there for them. You're not letting them down. They know they can count on you.
Yeah.
They know they have an idea. They want to express themselves,
Yeah.
and you are coming fully committed, heart in hand. Like, all right, you want the reverb on that? You're thinking of a reverb or a delay or whatever it is. You're able to maybe articulate something that they're thinking about. That shows how emotionally invested you are and that you love what you do. I mean, you love. I could see just from talking to you, and I could feel the fact that counseling, therapy, music, hip hop, that whole intersection being intertwined, and how passionate you are about it. I mean, it's great, and we need more people that are out there, that working with the youth that are passionate. That, I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of people doing it, but the more, the better that can relate. I'm saying, and that can listen to them.
Yes. You have to be able to. Yeah, we have to be able to like kind of give them what they want in this way, right? And so like we're not always gonna have it. Like I've said to young people like, all right, cool, like give me some notes and I'm gonna take this home and work on this mix for you and I'll come back with it, right? Because maybe I need more time with it, or I need to call my producer and be like, all right, they're asking for this, like what do I do? What's the plug-in again for this? Like, and like, but that's like the work that I'll do to make sure that it's ready. And then what's cool about that, hearkening back to what we were talking about around kind of culture building, is like the songs that come out of this process. I didn't mention this before, but like I did this project a couple of years ago with a school in the Bronx where the outcome of like the principal was like really jazzed about the work we were doing in the studio space, and he wanted to like debut the song like over the loudspeaker. So we had like a really well mixed song, and I worked with everybody to make sure it was that way, and we played it for the kids, and I put these really cool like drops in it with these filters on, and they like went nuts when they heard it the first time. And we set up, we basically were just able to amplify this song like over the loudspeaker during homeroom. And
That's crazy.
we debuted the song. And I remember I have these memories of the kids that did the song. They were running down the hallways, peeking through the little windows into every homeroom to like see other people's reactions to their stuff.
That's cool.
And this is like, it's like to go from I'm going to the counselor with something I need to talk about to like writing and producing a record about it, and then sharing it in such a way that you can run around your school building and like peek through the doors and see how your peers respond to this thing. It's like, can we imagine, like that's the whole point of
Ripple
counseling.
effect across the board.
And now everybody's also, that's the key too, right? Like everybody has
like a
some
wave.
type of benefit from that,
Yeah.
right? Like even the kid that like, everybody now can benefit from just hearing another person's truth and passion and excitement, and like it changes the environment. And I think that's the key, man.
And it also, ultimately, what it does is it helps them and it helps us connect with each other, to understand that we're not, people, you're not alone. A lot of people are going through things in life. We're human beings. We have life experiences. There's ups, there's a lot of downs, but you're not alone. And I would imagine in the work that you do, there's a camaraderie, or there is this community that these kids, these teenagers, they and I'm also asking, they start to feel like they have kind of more support, I would think, and that they're not so alone in kind of what they're going through. I mean, do you see that, or in the work that you're doing, do you sense that?
Yeah, I mean, I think universality, right? The understanding that what you're going through is not just your own experience is such a valuable outcome for a young person. And like adolescence is
it's the toughest.
You feel like you're alone in this thing, and like nobody else could possibly understand what it is that you're going through. And that makes sense at that time because you don't know these things. But I think sharing your truth on a song, getting that validation, being able to engage in conversations with other people who are like, yeah, you know what? I also had something similar happen to me, or whatever it is, right? Like just knowing that people relate to your content in that way, it makes you feel less alone, right? It makes you feel like you're, and that is like such a powerful outcome, particularly in group counseling work, right? It's like you get to hear other people, you get to share your experiences with other people, get feedback and validation. And so, it's certainly an avenue for feeling less alone.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's really important. So ultimately, looking ahead, like what's your vision for what you're doing? Tell us, tell us all a little bit about where do you want to take this?
Yeah, so right now, beyond just kind of like the practical work that I'm still tethered to around kind of hip hop approaches, my day job is I'm an assistant professor of school counseling at Rutgers University in the Graduate School of Ed, and I kind of in a way sort of co-direct the school counseling program. My colleague is on and off sabbatical, and so I've held that interim position for a little bit. But I through the work that I do there, my goal is to train kind of the next generation of counselors broadly. Mm-hmm. My specific research interest is to help other counselors develop capacity to do hip-hop based interventions. Right. And so like, I love that I have the ability and I've worked on the skills to like run hip-hop group counseling work myself, but I don't believe that that's like a sustainable method to support the mental health of young people nationally. I think the only way to do that is to get more folks on board. And so my dream is to eventually have like an army of school counselors, hip hop school counselors. Yeah. But in
the architect behind this kind of infrastructure that you're building out, where you have people doing the good work.
Yeah. And to do that, right, you need research. You need to develop, quote unquote, the evidence base for hip hop and counseling work. And there are a number of studies that showcase like the value of this work, but they're all done in like one school with a small group of kids. And that's great. But if we really want, like, I keep telling people, like, I'm chasing the ghost of like a big experimental design study around hip hop. Like
more
what would
data?
It look like?
Is that what it is?
More data, more kids.
Right.
More, in my work, we'll say like empirically rigorous, right? Or methodologically rigorous. So like you think about all these counseling theories and how they were developed. They were developed with like one group gets the treatment, the other group gets like a placebo, and you see which one does. But there's like there's different models for this, right? And so I'm very interested in doing that, and I think we're on the precipice of like a first attempt at this. There's a wonderful Jersey-based school district, Franklin Township Public Schools, who is
shout out to Franklin.
Shout out to Franklin. They're wonderful, and there's a handful of folks there. Miss Keon Peters is the director of counseling services. Mm-hmm. Dan Logren is the assistant superintendent of curriculum instruction. Both of these folks, along with Darren Plummer, there's a bunch of folks there that are working with me really closely. We've done a training for their school counseling staff around hip hop work, mm-hmm. and there is a single counselor within 2 schools. He works for 2 different schools in the district that is piloting a hip hop small group like right now, and we're collecting some data around it. And we hope to expand to like 3 schools, and 4 schools, and 5 schools, and 6 schools like over the next few years. And But I'm really trying to get more data, train more counselors, and my hope is that this work with Franklin becomes a model that can be carried to other school districts to expand in Jersey and then in the metro area and then out.
Yeah, it'll happen. I mean, listen, the passion is there, and you're already doing it. So it's just a matter of continuing to do the work, and just all the stuff will end up blossoming and sprouting and getting out there. And I think it's you're doing such important and positive work.
Thank you.
Before we sign off, I do want to I think we should both probably give a shout out to Dr. Lawrence Udigwe for bringing us together.
Yeah.
And he was a guest on the
Shout out
podcast too.
Lawrence. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, to Mr. or it's
Doctor. Yeah, I
it's
believe.
Dr. Udigwe. Yes, yeah, got his
Believe so.
PhD.
Yeah,
All right.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
well, I think we covered a lot. I mean,
We did, yeah.
There's so much more I can get into and start talking about related to hip hop and hip hop culture, but we're not going to do that right now. We're gonna end it and basically say, really appreciate the work you're doing. It's so important. It's so impactful, and also appreciate you taking the time to come out to talk about what you're doing and how you're helping people. It's great.
Well, no doubt. Thank you for having me and for showing an interest in this work. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.